Welcome to the OpenHBI course Linked Data Engineering. This is Lecture 1, Linked Data and the Web of Data. First, I want to give you a brief overview about what is going to happen in the very first lecture. Okay, we will start in the past. We will look at the story of the web so far. How has the way changed how the user is getting information from the web? In the early times it was much more difficult and you have to be an expert to get the information, but this has changed. And this will again change also with the web of documents becoming a web of data. The web of data is difficult to understand, so machines must be able to understand this data on the web. And how do they do this? How do they understand the content of data? You will see that this is quite similar to the way how humans try to make sense of content. So this will be the second part of this lecture. And if we are able to make sense of the data, if we understand the data, we also need a way to represent data and also the meaning of data. So part 3 will be towards a universal data representation, and we will have a brief look on the resource description framework, which will be used later on then in linked data and in the web of data. And all this is based on something which is called the semantic web, which will be something like the successor or an upgrade of the traditional web. Semantic web technology comprises technology for knowledge representation, handling knowledge, accessing knowledge on the web. And we will talk briefly about the semantic web technology, of which linked data is a subsection of. Linked data is the main topic of this lecture, therefore, then we will continue with the principles underlying linked data, the so-called linked data principles. What is linked data and how do we achieve to do that? And then we start with the very first thing. If we are talking about linking of data, we must somehow identify the data and name things which are somehow mapped to the data or which are identified by the data. So how to name things is really important, because only things that have a name, and in the web this is the URI, the Uniform Resource Identifier, only if I can really access something, if I can reference something, then I can make sense of it, then I can relate it to other things. So therefore, we have to consider uniform resource identifiers. Okay, that's it. Now, let's start with the first part of the lecture.